So this video is going to cover creating, installing and configuring an ESXi 6.5 host and then connecting that ESXi host to Vcenter server for Windows. As well as that, we're going to join the ESXi host to a Windows domain, which we have already set up. Prior to this video, I've already installed and configured Vcenter server for Windows. So when we're installing the ESXi host, we'll just come over here to our data store and we'll create a new virtual machine. And just use a logical naming convention. So I've already got a host down here, as you can see, so I'll name this number 2 and then select where you want to create it. So that's in my folder. Choose your data store. So I've got my own data store that's been given to me. I'll use that one. And for this version we're using 6.5 and later. So and when you come over to selecting the operating system, just click Other and come down to Other 64-bit. So looking at the hardware, we want to get the appropriate hardware for this particular host. So come down to CPU, we're going to choose 2 CPUs, and that's fine, 1 core per socket, 2 sockets. And you want to make sure to expose the guest OS to hardware virtualization. It's going to enable performance counters as well. And for your disk, this is what you're giving the host. So if you want enough space to create VMs, I'd put a bit more on there, so I'm just going to put 30 gigs. The VM needs at least 8 gigs of RAM to create, so I'm just going to give it 8.5 gigs of RAM. And for your network, you want to make sure that you've got the network that's connecting to your other infrastructure. So for me, this is the network everyone's on my network. CD and DVD drive, that's the ISO that you're going to use to actually install the host. So to find this, for me, it's going to be under my class folder. So down here there's a bunch of images, and the vSphere hypervisor is the one that we're going to use. This is ESXi 6.5.0, sorry. And you want to click connect, so it connects at power on. Just double check your settings as well. So once you actually go ahead and power on the VM and you boot in, you're going to be asked, it's going to load up first, and then you're going to be asked for some basic stuff such as the root password, keyboard layout, and more importantly the disk you want to install it on. So for whatever disk we selected when we created it, that's going to be the disk we install it on. So after the install is done, which is about 30 minutes or so, it's going to ask you to enter the login name. So this will be the password you set at the start. So that's root, and then what if your password was. And then you want to go F2 to customize the settings. And first off, we're going to configure the network settings. Come down to IPv4. We're not using IPv6 in this configuration, but alright, so you want to move this down. So you want to press the space bar to actually move this down. And now, depending on what your network is, I'm on 192.168.0/24. So I'm going to make an IP address for this host. It's one that I know that's not being in use. going to edit the subnet because we're a /24. And default gateway for me is going to be the Vcenter server. So that's .2 for me. Now we can press OK. Okay. And now you want to configure the DNS configuration. So come down to DNS and primary DNS server. So for me, depending on what your DNS server is, my one's .1. I don't have a backup DNS server. So for hostname, I'm just going to put my initials and then ESXi. And then, because I've already got one, I'll put number 2 for this one. Then I'll put my domain on the end, because then that automatically configures the suffix. Alright, and then OK. And then you can press escape and you'll get a chance to save it, so just click Y. Alright, so if we come back into our DNS settings, at the start I put my full domain name on there, but it's trimmed it off and it's put it down under custom DNS suffixes. So you definitely need the domain name. Now if we go to test management network, we'll be able to actually see if things are connecting properly. Now keep in mind, I haven't actually entered any DNS records, so the IPs will ping, but it won't be able to resolve the host name because there's no DNS record. So now I'm just going to go add a DNS record. So now in order to get connectivity, I need to come and add a DNS record. Otherwise we won't be able to join the domain. So I'm logging into my DNS server. Gonna come add a record under james.local, and I'm gonna add a new host record. And so the name we used was ESXi number 2, and the IP address was 192.168.0.59. And we're going to select to create a PTR record. So we're going to come back into our host, our ESXi server. We're going to try and test the management network again, and it's going to test all these nodes. And so now we have it resolving because we just added the DNS records. Alright, so now I'm opening up my management network, or my management console. So I've already got a server here with Vcenter server for Windows installed on it, and it's been configured and everything. And you'll notice I've already got a ESXi machine in here, but I'm going to import my new ESXi host. So I've created a new data center, and you can do that by selecting to create a new data center. And now under this new data center, I'm going to click to add host. And you definitely want to work with the host name here, because if your DNS isn't working, then we're just going to make sure we can connect by our host name. .james.local. And the host connection details, that's your ESXi login, so you would have set that when you installed ESXi. Here you can put a license key. I'm actually not going to put a license key on it because I don't want to waste it. This is just a test. And lockdown mode, we'll leave that disabled. Again, just confirming the location. Alright, so before I go to join a domain, I'm just going to come down to system and time configuration, and I've just added an NTP server, and that's my other host. So once it's imported the host, you want to come down here to just select the host, and down here we're going to come down to authentication services, and we're going to click to join a domain, because we're not yet joined as part of the domain. So james.local, and this is going to be your domain admin credentials, so it's going to be the, for me it's the default account on my Windows domain. So now I've got a working host, and you want to come over here to just verify that all of your computing resources are showing up. So if I come to summary on the host, I can see what kind of resources I've got. So 32 gigs of RAM, storage, 8 gigs of RAM and CPU and such. And it's actually gonna, if you come over here, when you're running stuff, you can monitor it, and there'll be alarms and that sort of stuff. You can define alarms which will be triggered, say if a VM is using too much resources. Triggered alarm, data store usage on disk. It's showing that I'm pretty much reaching the limits, because I've only got 7.5 gigs of storage here, when I really should have a lot more, as I've done with my new host.